Lauren McAfee is the daughter of Steve Green, founder of Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., and president of Hobby Lobby. Together, she and her husband Michael are passionate about the Bible. But as millennials, they understand why so many of their peers feel the Bible no longer applies to the modern-day life. In their book, Not What You Think, Michael and Lauren take a closer look at the most controversial book in history and explore its role in the future for this generation.
Well, Michael and Lauren, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Listen, before we talk about your book, let me ask you to start, if you will. Michael, I'll ask you to do this. Talk about what we should know about millennials in general.
Yeah, there's a lot. Chapter 2 is all about what millennials are. So we're the largest generation in history. We are immense, and we've grown up, we've come of age at the internet age. So that means not only are we connected to all amounts of information we could ever want, but we're also connected to each other. And so we have ideas and perspectives coming at us from all different directions. And we're also very passionate and impatient. We want to change the world. We want to do it yesterday. So.
And often with all that information and all those opinions coming at you, there's nothing in a lot of millennials' thinking or value system to ground them in how they receive that. That's part of the role the Bible's played for generations in people's lives.
With millennials, there's a large group, 60% of millennials are not Bible engaged. So there's 20% that have a really negative view of the Bible and 20% that are Bible engaged. So that leaves a large percentage of our generation who is very disconnected from the Bible, and we hope to encourage them to read it.
What do you feel like they're missing by not engaging with the Bible?
Yeah, I think that there's this constant pursuit of the new, right? And so we want the newest iPhone, we want the newest, cars or whatever. The newest is always best. And so our fear is that in our constant pursuit of the new, of the modern, we've lost something that's timeless. Wow. And so it's easy to look at the Bible and say, well, this maybe was relevant thousands of years ago or maybe 100 years ago, but what relevance does it have today? We want to say, if this is what it claims to be, the fact that it's transcended all cultures, that it's used around the world today by people of all ages, means there's something that it has to say
there
to us today. Exactly.
Yeah. Lauren, what's the church's role in all of this then? Because there seems to have developed a disconnect between millennials, as you've talked about, Michael, and the church. How do we sync all of that back together?
Yeah, so for our generation, we think that discipleship is so important. So whenever those in our generation, millennials and Gen Z as well, see someone from an older generation who's willing to have the dialogue, wrestle with the questions that millennials have and the things that keep them from engaging, and just disciple them, pour into them, and live life with each other, is a huge aspect for bringing millennials back into the church.
Let's talk about the generations above the millennials, before the millennials. Are they prepared to do that?
We hope so. I mean, and that was why we wrote the book, was as we were traveling around with Museum of the Bible, speaking to audiences all over the country, we were sharing our passion for the Bible. And we're constantly having conversations with pastors and parents saying, I have a struggle relating to my millennial congregant or child. I wish you could talk to them. And so we wrote this in part to help them be able to speak to the next generation, to give them a love for the Bible. And even if they can't, this would be the conversation we'd have over a cup of coffee with someone.
Yeah. Where would you suggest people start? Because, you're talking about a generation that probably hasn't dusted off the book, hasn't engaged with it. And it would be confusing to just dive in without understanding what you're reading.
It can be very daunting to approach the Bible, but this is a significant book, so we encourage approaching with prayer before you dive in, and then also looking at, we think it's really helpful to gain perspective of the overarching story of the Bible, and that everything points to Jesus, and having that lens as we approach the book. So we talk about that in the book, of how to approach it that way, and then be open-minded and walk along the book as a friend and mentor, and considering what it has to offer you.
You, I know, have been a journaler for years. How has the discipline of that been helpful to you in your walk?
Yeah, so for 15 years, I journal every day. I write out prayers and who I'm praying for and what I've been reading that day. And it's such a helpful routine to have that rhythm, because it can be hard to develop a discipline. But once we develop a discipline, it makes it easier to continue that forward. So
actually, in the world that's as chaotic as you were talking about, Michael, with all the new everything's, screaming for our attention, kind of nice to have that quiet place you come away to at the beginning or the end of the day to do something like that. Michael, if someone had no interest in pursuing the Bible at all, what would you say to them?
There's a couple of reasons typically that's so. One is personal experience and the other is cultural perception. So I would try and find out why. The cultural perception being this book doesn't fit in our modern world. It claims that there's one God. It claims the only way is through Jesus, etc. I would try and engage there. But most of the time, those reasons are really just a front for, hey, I had a really bad experience with someone that claims to love the Bible that really hurt me. And so I would try and get to know their story, because typically that's the thing that's ultimately, it's not a, I have issues with the words on the page, but I have issues with the person that hurt me.
And sometimes I think, you know, if you haven't been in the Bible for a while, then you really don't understand the heart of God as your Father. And when difficult things happen, whether it's personally or in the world, it's pretty hard to process all of that.
Yeah, that's right. People today generally can perceive the Bible as just a book of morals and do's and don'ts. And often that heart is missing, of the heart of a loving God and Creator who gave His Son that we might have relationship with Him and what's good for us and is pursuing us.
Well, let me tell you that the book is called Not What You Think. The subtitle is Why the Bible Might Be Nothing We Expected, Yet Everything We Need. It's a great graduation gift. It's available wherever books are sold. So be sure to check out our Facebook page. Hear more from Lauren and Michael. Just go to facebook.com/700 Club Interactive. Thank you both. Wonderful book. Great to have you here.